Breaking the Silence, Unmasking Military Sexual Trauma, and Forging a Path to Healing. Welcome, everyone, to this eye-opening and heart-wrenching journey into a world that too often remains hidden in the shadows. Today, we're diving deep into a topic that demands our attention, our empathy, and most importantly, our action. We're here to unmask the harsh reality of military sexual trauma and explore the courageous path to healing and change. But before we begin, I want to acknowledge the incredible individual who has made this conversation possible. Quiana Davis, a beacon of hope and a force for change, has graciously shared her experiences and insights with us. Quiana isn't just a survivor, she's a warrior in the truest sense of the word. Her tireless advocacy and unwavering courage have not only shed light on this critical issue, but have also paved the way for countless others to find their voice and reclaim their power. Quiana, your impact on making this world a better, safer place is immeasurable, and we are profoundly grateful for your bravery in sharing your story. Now, let's dive in, shall we? Picture this. A young woman, barely out of her teens, stands tall and proud as she takes the oath to serve her country. Her eyes shine with determination. Her heart swells with patriotism. She's ready to sacrifice everything for the nation she loves. But what she doesn't know, what none of us want to believe, is that the greatest threat she'll face won't come from foreign enemies, but from within the very ranks she's joining. This, my friends, is the stark reality of military sexual trauma. It's a betrayal so profound, so devastating, that it shakes the very foundation of what we believe about honor, duty, and service. And yet, it's a reality that thousands of service members face every single year. Now, I know what some of you might be thinking. Why should I care about this? I'm not in the military. This doesn't affect me. Oh, but it does. It affects all of us. Because every time we allow injustice to persist, every time we turn a blind eye to suffering, we chip away at the very values that make our society worth defending. Let's talk numbers for a moment, shall we? According to the Department of Defense, in 2021 alone, there were an estimated 35,900 instances of sexual assault in the military. That's not a typo, folks. 35,900. That's more than the entire population of some small towns. And here's the kicker. Only about 20% of these assaults are ever reported. Why? Well, that's where things get even uglier. Quiana shared with me a story that still sends chills down my spine. She told me about a young airman, let's call her Sarah. Sarah was assaulted by her superior officer, someone she was supposed to trust, someone who was supposed to have her back. When she finally gathered the courage to report the assault, do you know what happened? She was told to keep quiet. She was told that speaking out would harm unit cohesion. She was even threatened with disciplinary action if she pursued her complaint. Can you imagine the betrayal, the isolation, the sheer gut-wrenching despair? This is the reality that far too many of our service members face. And it's not just women, by the way. Men in the military also experience sexual assault at alarmingly high rates, often facing even greater stigma and disbelief when they come forward. But here's where things get interesting and where Quiana's work becomes so crucial. You see, Quiana isn't just sharing horror stories. She's not here to shock us into paralysis. No, Quiana is all about action, about change, about hope. She told me about another survivor. Let's call him James. James was assaulted early in his military career. And like so many others, he kept it to himself. The shame, the fear, the confusion, it all became too much. He started drinking heavily. His performance suffered. And eventually, he was discharged under less than honorable conditions. But James's story doesn't end there. Through a support group for male survivors of military sexual trauma, James found his voice. He found healing. And most importantly, he found purpose. Today, James is an advocate, working tirelessly to change the culture within the military and to support other survivors. This, my friends, is the power of breaking the silence. This is the transformative potential that lies within each survivor's story. Now, I can almost hear some of you thinking, but surely things are getting better, right? The military must be addressing this issue. Well, yes and no. The military has indeed implemented various programs and policies aimed at preventing sexual assault and supporting survivors. But here's the rub. The numbers aren't improving. In fact, they're getting worse. Why? Well, as Quiana so eloquently put it, you can't solve a cultural problem with a policy band-aid. The issue of military sexual trauma isn't just about a few bad apples or a lack of proper procedures. It's about a deeply ingrained culture that too often prioritizes power, conformity, and the protection of the institution over the well-being of individuals. Let me give you an example. Quiana shared a story about a training session she observed. The instructor, well-meaning as he might have been, spent more time telling female service members how to avoid being assaulted than he did educating everyone about consent and respect. The underlying message is on potential victims to prevent assault, not on everyone to create a culture of respect and accountability. This, my friends, is what we're up against. It's not just about changing policies or procedures. It's about fundamentally shifting the way we think about power, about service, about what it means to have each other's backs. But here's the good news. Change is possible. It's happening right now, thanks to brave individuals like Quiana and the countless survivors who are speaking out, demanding justice, and working tirelessly to create a better future. Quiana told me about a program she's involved with that pairs survivors with senior military leaders. These survivors share their stories, not just the assault itself, but the aftermath, the impact on their lives, their careers, their families. And you know what? It's making a difference. These leaders, many of whom had never really grasped the full impact of military sexual trauma, are becoming powerful advocates for change. This is the power of storytelling, of human connection. It's easy to ignore statistics, to brush off policies. It's much harder to look into the eyes of a fellow human being and dismiss their pain, their struggle, their humanity. But it's not just about changing minds within the military. It's about changing our collective consciousness as a society. Because here's the thing, the military doesn't exist in a vacuum. It's a reflection of our broader culture, our values, our beliefs about power, gender, and sexuality. So what can we do? How can we, as civilians, as citizens, as human beings, be part of the solution? First and foremost, we need to listen, really listen, not just to the statistics or the policy debates, but to the stories of survivors. We need to create spaces where these stories can be told, where survivors feel safe, believed, and supported. Secondly, we need to educate ourselves and others. Military sexual trauma isn't just a military problem or a women's issue. It's a human rights issue, a public health issue, a matter of national security. The more we understand about the complexities of this issue, the better equipped we'll be to advocate for meaningful change. Third, we need to hold our leaders accountable. Whether it's military brass, elected officials, or community leaders, we need to demand action. Not just lip service, not just policy tweaks, but real substantive change that addresses the root causes of military sexual trauma. Fourth, we need to support organizations and initiatives that are doing the hard work on the ground. There are incredible nonprofits out there providing direct support to survivors, advocating for policy changes, and working to shift the culture within the military. They need our support, our time, our resources, our voices. And finally, perhaps most importantly, we need to examine our own beliefs and behaviors. How do we contribute to a culture that allows sexual violence to persist? What unconscious biases might we hold about survivors, about masculinity, about power? It's not comfortable work, but it's necessary work if we want to create real lasting change. Now, I know this is heavy stuff. I know it's easy to feel overwhelmed to think, what difference can I possibly make? But let me tell you something. Change happens one person at a time. One conversation at a time, one action at a time. Quiana shared a story with me that I think perfectly illustrates this point. She told me about a survivor she worked with. Let's call her Maria. Maria had been assaulted by a fellow service member, and like so many others, she kept it to herself. The shame, the fear, the self-doubt, it was eating her alive. But then something remarkable happened. Maria attended a support group, and for the first time, she heard other survivors share their stories. She realized she wasn't alone. She realized it wasn't her fault. And in that moment, something shifted. Maria found her voice. She started by telling her story to the group, then to her family, then to her commanding officer. And you know what? People listened. People believed her. And bit by bit, Maria reclaimed her power, her sense of self, her future. But it didn't stop there. Maria's courage inspired others to speak out. Her commanding officer, moved by her story, became a vocal advocate for change within his unit. The ripple effect of Maria's bravery touched countless lives, creating a wave of change that continues to this day. This, my friends, is the power we all hold. The power to listen, to believe, to speak out, to act, the power to create change, one story, one conversation, one action at a time. As we come to the end of our time together, I want to leave you with a challenge, a call to action, if you will. I want you to imagine a world where every person who puts on a uniform to serve their country does so knowing that they will be respected, protected, and supported. A world where the phrase military sexual trauma is a relic of the past, a dark chapter in history that we've decisively closed. Now, I want you to ask yourself, what role will you play in creating that world? Will you be the one who listens, really listens, when a survivor shares their story? Will you be the one who educates yourself and others about the realities of military sexual trauma? Will you be the one who demands accountability from our leaders, who supports organizations doing the hard work on the ground? Or will you be the one who looks away, who says, it's not my problem, who allows this injustice to persist through your silence and inaction? The choice is yours. But know this, every time you choose to listen, to believe, to act, you're not just helping one survivor. You're creating ripples of change that can transform lives, reshape institutions, and yes, change the world. Quiana Davis and countless other survivors and advocates have shown us the way. They've broken the silence, they've shown a light on the darkness, and they've paved the path toward healing and change. Now it's up to us to walk that path, to amplify their voices, to carry their message forward. So I challenge you, be brave, be bold, be the change. Because in the end, it's not just about protecting our service members, it's about living up to the very ideals they've sworn to defend. It's about creating a world where justice, dignity, and respect are not just lofty ideals, but lived realities for every single person. The journey won't be easy. It will require courage, perseverance, and a willingness to confront uncomfortable truths. But as Quiana and so many others have shown us, it's a journey worth taking, a journey that can transform pain into purpose, silence into power, and trauma into triumph. So, what will your role be in this journey? How will you break the silence? How will you be part of the change? The time for action is now. The power is in your hands. Let's honor the bravery of survivors like Quiana by committing ourselves to this fight. Let's create a world where military sexual trauma is a thing of the past and where every person who serves our country can do so with dignity, respect, and safety. Thank you.